going to create a function to play the sounds. Now, to do that, we're going to need an audio source. So let's bring in an audio source up at the top, and I'm going to call it audio. So what that will do is look at the Raycast script, and it will look for a component that we haven't attached yet called audio source. It will also then look for an audio clip. But what I want to do is I want to actually drag in multiple audio clips, different sound effects. For example, the sound of the gunshot, the sound of the explosion for when the bird gets hit, and any other sound effects that we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a public audio clip. Okay, but instead of it being one item, if I put square brackets afterwards, that will turn it into something called an array, which is basically a list. So if I make a public audio clip array, it will give me the opportunity to have multiple audio clips. And the way that an array works would basically be like so, separated by commas, like so. Now that would be 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4 in the list. A computer starts from 0 when it counts. It just happens to be a 0, but it could be text if we wanted to. I'm talking about the actual slot location. So that will be audio clip 0, audio clip 1, audio clip 2, 3 and 4. In this particular case, I've made this public, which means that in the editor, we're going to have a bunch of slots that we can drag audio files into, and that will dynamically populate this variable for us. So now all we need to do is create a function that will play the corresponding clip. So here, I'm going to create a public void, and it's going to be called play sound. Okay, capital S. And what we need to pass in is the number of the slot for the correct audio clip. So if you remember, a whole number is an integer, and I'm going to name our integer sound, as in the sound that we want to play. Now, all we have to do is get the audio source and then load in the correct clip inside that actual audio source in the inspector. And which one do we want? Well, it's actually a list from clips, but we don't know which one it is, which number it is. So that will be this variable here, sound. So once we've dragged our audio clips into the inspector to fill this list up, then all we have to do is pass in a number, and it will play the correct sound, provided we tell it to play the correct sound, like so, whenever this function is called. So let's imagine I have a gunshot sound, a bird exploding sound, and a game over sound. If I wanted to call the game over sound, that would be the third option, but when it starts from 0, it would be 0, 1, 2, so it would actually be the third slot, but the second one when we're counting as a computer. Now if I wanted to call this function and play that sound, all I'd have to do is play that. Well, it wouldn't work there actually. I'd have to actually be inside a function. So I just call the play sound function and pass in the number 2, and that would run this function, and that would actually play the second sound effect, which would be the third slot, considering that the computer counts from 0. Okay, so I'll just take that out as we don't need it. I just wanted to explain how that works. So before we forget, let's add an audio source to the Raycast script. So add a component and type in audio source. There we go. So here's the audio clip here. Now above you can see that we have the clips, and that's the publicly exposed clips variable here. Now if I click the arrow to expand it and then type in a 3, that will give me 3 element slots, actually up to 2 because it's 0, 1 and 2. And all I'd have to do is come across to my sounds and drag in the correct clips. that would dynamically populate the clip variable that we've got here, and that would make the play sound function play the correct clip when we pass in a number. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is create the fire button. So what I want to do is make it so that when we press the button on the screen, it can call a function called fire. Okay, so come back up to the top for a second, because we have this next shot variable that I created and the fire rate as well. Now, by default, next shot is true, so we're allowed to take a shot. Now, what this is going to do, this is going to check if next shot is actually true. Now, you can just leave it like that, and that would mean it's true also. Now, if it is true, then what I want it to do is call another coroutine. So if we're allowed to take another shot, what we need to do is start a new coroutine, and I'm going to call this one take shot. And then I'm going to set next shot to be false, so that if the user presses the fire button again, then they call the fire function, but it won't take a second shot. The coroutine will actually then take the shot, and it will wait until the animation sound effects have finished and adjusted the scores accordingly and everything, and then it will set next shot back to be true. So what we're going to need again is another private I enumerator, and this will be called take shot. There we go. Now, like before, we're going to yield and then return a new wait for seconds, and the gunshot animation will be the number of seconds for the fire rate. So that's what we're going to put in here. It's the fire rate, and that's how many seconds the user will have to wait before the variable for next shot is then set back to be true again. Oop. Like so. Nope. Like so. Nope. Like so. Okay, but before it does this and allows us to fire again, we actually need to take the shot. So this is where raycasting comes in. Now, Unity has a built-in function called ray, and I'm going to create a new ray, which I will just call ray, and then I'm going to get hold of the position and set that, the position of the camera, and set that to be the position of where I want my raycast to fire from. So what we need to do is get a hold of the camera, and the one that we want to get is the main camera. Then, when we have that, I'm going to set the viewpoint to ray. Now, this is a built-in function which expects a position of a start point for where the ray will fire from. So what this takes is a vector 3. Hang on one second, there we go, a vector 3, but it's slightly different. If we look at the game view for a second, the vector 3 that this takes for raycast is between 0 and 1. So if we start in the bottom corner, 1 would be the full width of the screen. It would also be the full height of the screen. So 0.5 would be the absolute center, and then 0.5 on the Y would place it into the absolute center of the screen. So that's what we're going to set this vector 3 to. So it will actually be 0.5 and 0.5f again. Okay, now on the Z-axis, I want it to be flush against the actual canvas. So that's all we need to do. And now we've created a raycast firing directly from the center of the screen where the camera position is anchored. Now all we have to do is get back the information that the raycast has hit. So let's do that. Let's get the raycast hit. And I'm going to call this hit. And all the information from what the raycast hits will be dropped inside this variable here. We can then access different properties inside that, such as the name of the object that was hit and things like that. So that's enough coding for a second, because what we now need to do is create the particle system for the muzzle flash, as I want that to be called and to be spawned when we actually take a shot. So let's pause the video here and I'll see you in the next one.